this technology works. Hi,
Hi,
yay, there you are. We did
we're
it.
here.
Hey, Rio, how you doing?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am excited.
Me too.
So Rio's all the way from the Netherlands. Look at this.
Yes.
We're global over here. This is amazing. So
Yes.
cool.
So
So,
excited.
sorry.
I'm so excited to be here.
I know. I'm so excited that you're able to jump on. So let me tell you guys a little bit how we met. So Rio and I have a huge passion for inner beauty. So we have been connecting the last like month or so, just chatting about like this thing we love so much. And Rio was just like getting me ignited and on fire to know like, I'm not the only one. This is like a bigger vision than me. This is so much bigger than me. And it was so cool to know that somebody else was as passionate about inner beauty as me. So I was like, whoa, this is amazing. So cool about that. We've been chatting. We've been trying to figure out if there's a way that we can start meeting more business babes who are excited about inner beauty, who just want this movement to just continue to grow and grow and grow. So excited to know that on the other side of the world, women are passionate about inner beauty. So cool for that. So let me tell you a couple things about Rio. So I asked Rio, what is her inner beauty uniqueness? And I loved her answer. She told me that her inner beauty is creativity. She's a dreamer and she's extremely ambitious. So I wonder why we get along so well.
Yes. So
love
true.
those things that those qualities that you have. I could totally see those in you, Rio, as we've been chatting the last few months. So how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm really great. I'm really excited for this live. And yeah, great to be here and to really share the passion that we have for inner beauty.
I know, it's just so awesome. I just feel like God is going to do something amazing
Yes,
through these connections, and I cannot
definitely.
see it all unveil.
Yes.
So thank you first off for letting me coming live and sharing. You are going to let me interview you about pain. So a
Mhm.
lot on my greatest love, a lot of what the content I share about is pain and how God heals us through pain so that we can have a clearer and better connection with him,
Mhm.
to get answers that, we're looking for. So thank you for being so vulnerable and open to sharing your story. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, sure.
So tell me a little bit about your story as it relates to pain. Like, give us some background of the story that you wanted to share today.
Yeah. So in the last 5 years or so, I've gone through quite challenging times. And for those of you who we're meeting for the first time, I trained to be a professional pianist. And actually, what happened to me was that through an infection, I lost partial hearing. So now I'm wearing a hearing aid, and also a partial movement of my right hand. So that was like such a devastating time of my life, and it really challenged me also in my faith, and it really made me actually like a lot of emotions were triggered, like anger, frustration, sadness, and obviously pain. Like, why is this happening to me? And I was even angry at myself because I blamed myself for having these things happen to me, and I was angry at God. Like, how could you let this happen to me? I thought you had promised this calling to be a musician in my life. So yeah, it was quite a challenging time for me.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, man, as a musician, to lose hearing and then movement in your hand that you
yeah,
needed to be a pianist, oh my gosh, that had to be hard. That had to be tough.
yeah, definitely.
So
Yeah,
at some point, you had to, say enough is enough. because you had a turning point at some point. Can you tell us a little bit about that turning point?
Yeah, sure. So I was going through quite intensive therapy. I had a whole team of physical therapists, doctors, psychologists, like really working together to bring healing to my body. Because actually, it's funny because earlier on we mentioned how ambitious I am. But it's so crazy because every positive character also has it's like a double-edged sword. It also has its pains, and it has its brokenness if it's gone to an extreme, because that's exactly what happened to me, because I had worked myself so hard to a point that I got this injury and infection. My health was not at its optimal place. And yeah, so I actually came to a point that I was really like, wow, I really cannot go on like this anymore. Like, I'm needing, first of all, professional help, and I need to really look within and see what's actually going on. And that was a time, like through the therapy sessions, I really like came to myself, like, what is the sole cause that is driving me to achieve so much? Like, is it actually like, am I actually hiding myself? Like, is it coming from a place of love, or is it coming from a place of fear? And what I realized is that I was actually coming from a place of fear, that I was afraid that if I'm not successful enough in the world's eye, then that I'm not good enough and that I'm not worthy enough. So this actually process excuse me, led me to realize that deep down inside, I was actually afraid to show up in my fullest. So this was kind of like turning point for me when I really faced myself in that aspect.
Oh, wow. That's powerful. That is powerful. I liked what you said about, like your strength. I heard you say like your strength is becoming your weakness, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you have so much you had some ambition to continue with this that it was starting to hurt you physically.
Yes.
That was a beautiful insight. I think that being aware that our gifts can actually, if we don't have the character behind
Mm,
it, they can hurt us or they can, harm us.
yeah.
Uh, that's a really powerful insight.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut
Yeah,
you.
definitely. And I feel like the reason that I have gone through this was also that God was shaping me and molding me to build that character. And I remember we had this conversation about, like, even if we're trying to run like a marathon, like if we don't have that character or that endurance built through the trials that we've gone through, like, then we'll never get to the end. And yeah, definitely I feel like this it's actually one of my passions to really share the message that every pain that we go through, that's not like the whole entire chapter. Like, that's not our whole entire story of our lives, but that even that painful chapter is actually part of this bigger tapestry of this like grand story that God has for us, like in our lives. And I'm
Mhm.
so passionate about sharing this message because when I was in this painful time, I really felt like this is it. This is my life. This is like my story of brokenness and pain. And what I realized coming out of it is that, wow, I actually needed that phase, that chapter in my life. And actually, that painful chapter is what actually made my whole story more beautiful, because
Yeah.
without it, then I wouldn't be where I am now. So yeah, that's definitely one of my like biggest passions and my to share about.
That's beautiful. Yes. That the story's not over yet. No matter
Yes.
how hard our circumstances may seem, no matter how defeated we feel, to know that this is just a chapter and that it's going it's going to work for your greater good, right? I totally agree with that.
Yes.
I think suffering and pain is hard. Um, it's hard. The good thing about it is that it does build endurance, that we really cannot learn endurance unless we've suffered at some capacity. And I'm not
Mm,
saying at any point, if you don't have pain in your life, to go get pain. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that if you are in a trial, if you are someone who is experiencing that right now, I just want to
mm,
encourage you that the trial can actually lift you up and give you something positive, even though it doesn't feel like it. So that's what I, anyway, but
yeah, totally. I totally agree. And I feel like oftentimes we pray to God, like, oh God, please shape us. And then all this like terrible things happen. We're like, no, I take it back.
So true. So true. Very, very true. So when you were going through this, we've been talking a lot about being still in My Greatest Love in the Interviewing Movement group. I'm just curious, in this process for you, how were you able, especially when it's so close to your heart and it's painful, how were you able to be still to even hear from God?
Yeah, and I think that's always been a challenge for me because I'm a very active, creative person, and my brain is everywhere in 3 different places at the same time. So I often actually really have to discipline myself and force myself to just sit down and spend time with God. And actually, this injury, it was somehow like a blessing in disguise because it really forced me to just stop working and spend time with God and be with yourself. And I actually had this one, actually it was painful, but now looking back, it's quite a beautiful moment that I was actually lying in bed and I would remember waking up in pain every day, you know, that it felt like this knife, like poking at my heart every morning in pain. And I remember that I actually had this image that I was facing myself. I saw an image of like myself actually walking toward me, and I actually came face to face with who I am. And it was such a beautiful moment because it was a moment I actually like embraced myself and I actually forgave myself for, because I used to blame myself, be like, oh, I should have done this differently. I could have worked less. You know, why did I push myself? You know, all this self-blame. And at this moment, I was able to let go and let God like heal me and come in that place, be like, hey, Rio, it's okay. You know, like you are okay just as you are. And, you know, I don't have to beat myself up, but that it's like I'm whole, that I'm like, yeah, I don't need to do anything else to like earn my worthiness. So yeah,
that's powerful. So you were able to be still, you found that place, and then in the process, you learned forgiveness.
Yes.
Which is huge. I think this is huge. I just want to highlight that. And first off, congratulate you and tell you that's amazing that you were able to do that, to forgive. That's really, really hard to do. It's super hard to do. And to know that you were able to get to that place of forgiveness. I think the number one thing when it comes to the pain process, at least that I have experienced with working with women and with my own process, is that forgiveness is the first step. And forgiveness, like, it's a process. There's times we can say, I forgive, but then sometimes it takes time to really forgive. Like you have to find yourself. Did you find yourself that way, saying, I have to forgive myself like over and over again?
Yes, definitely. And I kind of remembered, like, I thought of like the wall of Jericho, like having to go around it many, many times. And I found that to be true for myself, that even if I forgive myself once, then I would have to face that pain again, be like, okay, let's face it again. It's sort of like peeling onions and really going deeper and deeper. And yeah, definitely I found it to be a process, not like a one moment healing.
Yes. I think that's so important. I think some people can get, including myself, discouraged thinking that because they said, I forgive whoever it is, if it's themselves, God, or somebody else, you know, that they don't see or they don't feel like themselves being released. I think that, to have a little bit more understanding that it's a process and it takes time, and to allow yourself that time and not to beat yourself up and expect such a quick, you know, turnaround, because it's emotions for whatever it may be. Like, this could be hurt that's been going on inside of you for a really long time. I know with my pain, it was like a lifetime of pain that I carried. So to think 25 years of pain, like that would be gone in a day, like that's just not realistic, I think. And now God can do anything. He could touch you and heal you in a second. It's possible. I've heard of that. It's possible. But I think that and more often than none that he doesn't, it's a process.
Yes.
So I'm just saying that so that if anybody's listening to this and looking for healing, that they would give themselves the space and the time
Yes.
to do it.
Yes. I really want to touch up on that space and time and allowing the emotion to take its place, because that was so big for me, because I tend to be very much of like, I don't have patience. I'm like, okay, I just want it to be healed. And that's how I was. And I would become very, very disappointed, even in the healing process, that I would go to my doctor and be like, we set this goal that I would be healed from this certain thing at this moment. Like, why is it not happening? And I really had to learn to allow myself to really process, like, even for that pain to just to be there and to, you know, go through the journey of its healing and processing and just sitting in the pain for a little while in order for it to process. So that's definitely, and allowing myself the grace to be like, hey, it's all right. I'm not perfect and I'm in this brokenness, but that's okay. And that was so big for me.
Yeah, I think what you said was a great point, that you have to sit in the pain, right? I always talk about The Shack. I love that movie. Have you seen that movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
okay.
good.
But the way that in the movie God asked the man Mackenzie to go back to the shack, which was the place of his biggest pain, and I think it's really hard, especially when the pain is deep and it just penetrates and it's very painful. Nobody wants to sit in that space. I get it. I didn't want to sit in that space. But I think what you said is powerful, is you do have to go back to that space to find the healing. Because what I was doing and what I can see is a consistent thing and theme in the women that I coach is that we don't want to deal with that pain. So we do everything we can to avoid it.
Yes.
And what happens is we suppress it. We don't actually process it. And in order to get healed, we have to go back in the pain and release it to God this time, to let him heal us. And that was a powerful eye opener for me, as well as you. And I think that it's hard. I get it. Somebody said it to me this way. They said, like, if you have a broken arm and you have to heal it, sometimes you have to break it again so that it heals perfectly. And that's kind of what I felt like the process was like. I had to go back to the pain and trust God in the process.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, definitely. It actually kind of reminds me of this one incident that I had to do a quite intense, deep journaling process of actually writing down the pains that I experienced as a child. And I remember that I was sitting in this one room and I was bawling my eyes out. And it was as if it's sort of like this, like going back and reliving that pain. And I really felt that I really, truly was reliving it. Like I experienced it and felt the pain, and it was so real. But I remember after like bawling my eyes out, I just really felt this like heaviness lifted off my shoulders, and I kind of realized, I told it to my psychologist, like, hey, this happened to me, like, is this okay, is this normal, like, am I going crazy? And she was like, no, you just gave your the pain a place in your heart. Now it has like a place to be. And now, before it was suppressed, I was like, this doesn't exist, you know. And now I allowed it to come out and to process itself. And she's like, it's perfectly healthy and it's perfectly good. And I was like, okay, wow.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I know, because when you go back to that pain, you can get to a place of feeling scared and feeling worried, like, oh no, like I didn't want to invite all this back into my life. You know, you may even thought that you've healed from it. That's why you haven't felt it. But really, like you said, it was a suppression. And I think that's cool, the way they were talking about surfacing it and letting it out, because it's so powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's the whole giving it the place and allowing ourselves to feel the pain and giving us the permission, like, hey, this is okay.
Yes. Because I feel like, at least in my situation, I felt like God was showing me that the way I was viewing the pain, like I had to get back in the pain to see how I was viewing it back then.
Yeah.
And at that point, I felt like a victim. I was feeling like people were mistreating me and abusing me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just angry and upset and hurt by people who did this. And what happened was I had those feelings again. You know, I got back into the pain and I felt like a victim and I felt like I was abused and hurt. But then as I sat in that pain with God, he started to reframe the perspective, right? Yes. Cool. That's so cool to hear that he did that for you too. Yeah. Like he reframed that perspective to showed me, because in my situation, it was my father. He showed me my dad and his heart for my dad, like the way God sees my dad. And he showed me my dad. He literally, because in my dad's situation, his father walked away from him as a child. So he literally showed me this image of a little boy walking and his dad walking away from him and the little boy crying. And I was crying for days and weeks because it was so powerful in my heart. I had so much compassion for my dad that when he showed me that perspective, it healed me. Like watching the compassion that God has for my dad, like I had that. And with that, it healed me because it was like my perspective was wrong. My dad wasn't meaning to hurt me. It's all he knew. It was his brokenness from his hurt from his dad. And that has nothing to do with me, you know, even though it can feel very much like, you know, that case, but it's just how God sees my dad. And I'm sure in my situation, I can't sit and wait for my dad to be healed and tell me he's sorry. Like that's not it. What God was trying to show me was that I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim, and that what's going on is not about me. That was my perspective. But it's so cool to see that he showed you a different perspective as well.
Yes, yeah, and it's so amazing that like you shared that story with me, because it's so like I can really see a reflection in my own story as well, because my story was that I always felt like not worthy enough and not good enough as a child. And obviously like I had wonderful parents, but it's like, you know, every child perceives everything that they receive in childhood in different ways. And for me, I perceive like having grown up in a very like high achieving family, that for me was that I have to be in a certain high achievement in order to be loved, in order to be worthy enough. And that's how I just perceived it as a child. And I remember in this crying session that I had, I wrote a letter, like everything that I would have, I wanted to hear from my father. And actually it was so interesting, because when I wrote down, like, I just wanted to hear that I'm like good enough and I'm worthy enough and I'm loved, and you know, no matter like if I do or not achieve anything. And I remember that it was as if like God was there at the same time, and then he showed me like exactly what you said, the third perspective, like hey, that is not you having to have something in order to be good enough. That is not the truth. The truth is that you are good enough. And I really feel like, like it was that like third perspective that kind of like shifted inside of me, and that is the healing point. Like that is the ultimate healing point, and like that allowed me to see the truth. Like, hey, I don't need to clutch onto anything else to be worthy. And I think that was the biggest turning point for me.
I like that. The third perspective. I'm going to use that one. I really like that a lot. Very good.
Yeah. I actually got it from a friend of mine. She was also in therapy, and she actually did it as a therapeutic procedure, that like you imagine yourself with someone else who has hurt you, and then you imagine yourself in that situation, and you invite a third person, whether it be like someone you really trust, and you know, like whether it be your God, Jesus, or your husband, or your father, you know, if that third person is and that third person is going to give you that like truth, a new perspective in the situation. And that's kind of what triggered me to be like, okay, let's invite God in this situation.
Amen. And you know, I think the powerful thing about going through something like this is even when you come across things like, I know I did, I talked about dealing with negative people earlier this week.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's little hurts in us. That's what I call them, little hurts, compared to these deep wounds.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that I can take the same thing I learned from this deep wound
Mm.
process and apply it to those smaller hurts.
Oh yeah.
Because, yeah, because when we react, I was talking about how if a negative person makes you react or makes you feel angry, it's because they're sifting something out in your heart.
Yeah.
Because you're believing something they're saying, because it's defining
Mm-hmm.
you in a way for you to like react.
Yeah.
Uh, so what I was talking about was going through the healing process. Now that made me seem so minimal and so small, but what God has shown me through this process is that he's the only one that defines me. And
Mm-hmm.
like he said the same thing to you. You already are enough. You are
Mm-hmm.
amazing. You are beautiful. You are chosen, right? And when
Mm-hmm.
these lies that we're not, it takes us away from his truth. So whenever I find myself reacting or getting angry because somebody um, challenges my who I am,
Mm-hmm.
um, I know that that's me like not focusing on truly who I am. And I
Yeah.
know that means that there's an area in my heart that
Mm.
that can get in there, and I don't want people to get in there anymore, or
Yeah.
that hurt. So I use the process of healing for the
Mm.
smallest little things, and it's powerful. It really is powerful on how much stronger we come back. And like, I know for like negative people in my life, if I work with God and I let him heal me, I know those next interactions with them are so much more powerful, because
Yes.
it's more about love and it's less about me reacting and being angry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
Super
I
cool.
love what you said about these triggers because one of the things that I learned is that when someone says something about you, let's say like something negative that really like makes you react, as you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and it's exactly true. It's because actually this is actually one of my things that I my psychologist told me. Like if somebody told you something that you 100% know is not true, like, hey, your face is purple, right? Then you'll be like, that's ridiculous. You will never react to that because you know deep down,
Yes.
also in your subconscious, like, my face is not purple. But if someone tells you like, hey, you look ugly, or like you're not beautiful, or something like that, and if there's anything deep down that actually we believe that like, hey, I think I'm not beautiful enough, and if we're reacting like, oh, what are you saying, my hair looks great, or whatever, like if we're reacting in a defensive way, then you know that, oh, hey, this is a trigger, like I think I need to go deep within and work on that, you know. Yeah, so I love that what you said, and it's all about like building that awareness. And oh, yeah, like what
So
is it that, yeah, the triggers.
the triggers. Yeah. I loved what you said about that, because that's how you know, like
Yeah.
when you react or get upset, like, because, when somebody tells you something, like you said, like my face is purple. No, it's not. You know that it's not you. It's not about you. It's just somebody projecting something
Yeah.
on you,
Yeah.
and you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when it hurts. It's when it,
Yeah.
a little deeper. It's like, oh, there's an opening that
Mm-hmm.
I need to work on that, because don't want to be swayed in any way.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and
Cool.
definitely, and I really feel like it's something that we can definitely work the awareness on, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I really love to do is to just write down every trigger that like has triggered you.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, in the last week or so, like, oh, someone said this, okay, let's write it down, and then make a list of like all the inner critics. And then
Yeah.
actually I did this myself, and I was so surprised like how many inner critic voices that I have for myself. And
Yeah.
yeah, but that awareness is the first point of healing.
Yes.
So
Yeah. That's beautiful.
yeah.
Wow. Wow. I think we got through all the questions. I don't even
Yes.
ask them all. But
Beyond.
thank you. Thank you so much again for coming live. I'm super excited about this, and I hope to have more women. I hope that, we can keep, talking to one another and sharing our stories, because I really know the power of sharing our stories is going to
Mm-hmm.
really help someone else who may be going through the same thing. And
Yes.
I know with inner beauty in women, like our beauty is tied to who we are. And knowing that it's defined by the one person, I believe,
Yes.
who is the person who defines each of us individually as Christ,
Hmm.
as Jesus. And I just really am excited about this movement and what he's doing to teach women that
Hmm.
he's the one that wants to define them. So that's super cool. So, a couple of things about Rio. First off, go to her page right now and start following her because her stuff is so beautiful. Like her creative gift is just so amazing. Like when you go to her feed, you just feel beauty, and I love that. That is like so awesome. So go and check out her feed and follow her. She has great insights, as you can see already now from meeting with her, speaking with her. She has beautiful insights about beauty, and she knows where beauty is defined. So check her out. She just recently was on the cover of a magazine called Authentic. You got that there? Ah, so cool. Yes, where she shares her story about pain and revealing how God, really made her story authentic through the pain. So check that out. That's on her link in her bio, so you can get that awesome magazine. And then she's also doing a June 21-day self-care challenge. Ooh, doesn't that sound fun? So you can join her on that as well. Rio, is there anything else you wanted to share with people and how they can connect with you?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I would love to connect with you via Instagram. And the other thing, it's a project of mine that I am doing, is that I am also partnered up with a naturally based hair care brand, because definitely one of my biggest passions is to empower women through beauty, both inner beauty and outer beauty. And I really feel that this is a message that I have for the world, is that actually, like what is the source of, like, why do we even talk about beauty, right? Are we doing it out of fear because like we feel like we're not good enough, or are we doing it to really truly honor our bodies and truly to honor and respect like who we are? And that's actually one of my biggest messages for the world, and that's why I'm also so passionate about partnering up with this hair care brand. So if you are someone, first of all, needing hair help, I'm always happy to help. And if you are also a creative biz babe who really love to like really share in this message of empowerment through beauty, then I would love to work with you as well. So yes, that's definitely a little pitch from my project.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. I'm excited. And yeah, I mean, the hair care products too are amazing that you talk about. I watched your videos. They're so educational, and your hair looks amazing. So, ladies and gentlemen who are watching, just thank you so much for allowing us time in your busy day to talk about inner beauty. I hope that this interview inspires you, and stay tuned because we're going to have more videos, hopefully, of more women sharing their stories. So, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.